All right, this is another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes. Welcome. I am Chris and have been a therapist since 1995. That is the way I introduce it now, Courtney.
That's new.
I used to try to do math, and I could never. Craig would pick on me. He's like, used to be 20 years, now it's 25, and then it was 23. So what really is the deal? So now it's just since 1995. I have a book out, Rediscovering Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self. So we welcome you to Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast where you get personal insights directly from a therapist in your own home and personal time in your car. So we invite you to see the world through the lens of a therapist. Being aware is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. We thank you for listening, really, internationally. Very cool. I enjoy seeing new countries kind of coming on, and China's been the newest big one.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
all the way around the world.
I mean, for real. It's pretty cool. So we thank you for making this show really what it is. You guys listening out there make us what we do, and we enjoy doing the show, and we enjoy having you with us. But contact us at contact@throughatherapisteyes.com. And the website also has a lot of cool things Neil works on to make it a good site to visit with search engines and search bars and things like that. Courtney, this is the human emotional experience, and I endeavor to figure this thing out together. Shall we?
We shall.
We shall. Salutations, we shall. I'm getting ready to go to the Renaissance Festival this weekend.
I have to tell you.
Yeah?
Go early.
Yeah.
The traffic, it took us 3 hours to get in.
Oh.
So go early. That's my recommendation.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That only leaves like 2 hours to be there.
Yeah, it was very busy.
That is brutal. Well, okay. Say everyone around the world, say some prayers for me this weekend coming up. Courtney, I apologize to you because last week I forgot to really highlight how people find you, because you are the best editor I have ever worked with.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
I've only worked with one, but...
So the bar is set at me.
Yes. And it's a high bar to set. Guys, really, she does a lot of cool stuff with, you got a magazine that's out for young girls writing their stories. I know you do ghost writing and editing services, vocem.com. I don't know what you do for your main job. What's your main, is that your day gig?
That is my day gig. Yep, I'm a multi-business owner.
Yeah, that's cool. You really are, and you do a great job at what you do. I really, really... this is the last week that she's going to be with us. You'll be back again in, I think, like 5 months or something like that. So we're gonna bid her farewell today. Unfortunately, like I told you before the mics came on, I'm sad about that.
Aw, well, thank you.
I've enjoyed doing this
with
you. So how do they find you? And did I get it right?
Yes, you're right. It's Vocem. The website is yourvocem.com. Vocem is VOCEM. It actually is Latin for your voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So my mission is to give voice to stories that matter.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I, like I said, man, I'm not joking or being silly. I mean, you're really good at what you do. You care. You're compassionate. Your ghostwriting ability is amazing to kind of get the voice of the person you're working with. You just turn it around fast.
I am fast.
I don't know how you do that so fast.
Wow. I think that I might need therapy for that, but I am fast.
We'll get into that today because we have a meaty cognitive behavioral therapy topic. So do you have a phone number?
Yes. It's U.S. phone number.
Yes,
trying
that's
to
true.
Include your international. So maybe email is better. I don't know.
Email and phone number alert.
Yep.
Get your pens out.
Yep. So first name is Courtney without a U, which is a tradition in my family to misspell the daughter's names. Okay. So it's CORTNEY at CORTNEYDONELSON.com. And the phone number is the area code 704 and then 608-2700.
704-608-2700.
It's an easy one.
I think I contacted you first on Was it? No, maybe it wasn't Facebook. I forget.
I
guess
forget.
I did get the phone
was
number.
it a text?
It may have been.
It might have been a text.
It may have been.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, feel free to text.
It worked out well.
Yeah.
It worked out well. And I'm going to get you going again here soon, maybe. on book number 2.
I'm ready.
And you start talking about that.
You
I'm
do.
excited about that. Yeah. That's going to be a mystery for now. Okay, so we have this is cognitive behavioral therapy. I mean, anybody that hears anything about CBT, you're getting a heavy dose tonight on what I think is it's an involved sort of deeper topic. I mean, the title, right? Challenge the assumptions we live by. We have so many things that we just don't realize are operational, and we're going to get into talking about that. But I was curious if you'd be willing to give your reaction when we were looking at the topics that we might cover. And I'm curious if you could describe what and why your reaction truly really was.
Well, first I have a question.
Okay.
Can we curse?
Oh, absolutely. I do that.
Can we use profanity?
Yes,
no.
we can.
No, it's a funny story. I mean, you were running down all the topics that you had brainstormed, and this was the one that scared me the most. And so I think I said something like, well, any of them but that one. And here we are.
Yeah, and here we are. So, and I guess that's the way it worked. We were talking about it. I kind of remember it differently, but I'm sure you're right. What was your reaction with that for?
Well, I think what you said to me was the phrase emotional operational assumptions.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what that was.
Okay.
Period. Couldn't even guess.
Really? Yeah, that's cool.
But when you said challenge the assumptions we live by, I could at least wrap my brain around that.
Okay, so it was the weird wording of the sort of
it sounded
more
very
term.
technical and complicated.
This is very technical and complicated, but we're going to try to simplify it. And I'm going to kind of give a foreshadowing that I actually don't in my therapy office quite attack this as directly as I used to, because I do feel like people get a little bit lost because this is a daunting task. So off the get-go, I really want to challenge people. This is really something important to do, but it can feel daunting when you start thinking about what do you mean the assumptions that we have. I don't assume anything. I assess information around me, and I operate from the things I see and hear. And if you do something, then I'm going to react. It's a basic reaction interaction, right? And that's not so. That's not really true. So I used to use a metaphor. Well, okay, let me back up to and belittle myself.
Oh, yay.
So this is the second time. It was kind of early on in my career. I was working with people, and I developed what I was doing with people in working with core beliefs. And core beliefs is the term that I thought I created. The first time that I thought I created something was the emotional bank account.
Okay.
And William Covey or somebody wrote about the emotional bank account. And I was like, dang it, that was an awesome metaphor. I thought I had it. He had it before me. And so this is the same thing, too. I don't know how many people really talked about core beliefs per se, but I started seeing in my cognitive work how that influences the interactions and the problems people were having in their relationships. So I started working with core beliefs. And then I found that, that's basically cognitive behavior therapy. Who knew?
Well, that doesn't mean you're not a genius.
I'm definitely far from a genius, but... So here's the metaphor that I used, and I have a much better metaphor that I learned today, actually. Great. So the way this works, in my mind, is a rocket, right? If you take the capsule, the little capsule, that's where our brains are. That's where our thinking process goes. That's where our perceptions operate, and that's where, we're basically operational in the capsule. That's where the people are. Mm-hmm. But then there's that whole big section of a rocket, right? That's got all the wiring, and it's got all of the meat and the guts and the, where the fuel's stored and where everything's kind of going on, right?
Right.
And then on the bottom, you've got the rockets, and that's what propels us in what we do. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like to think about it as our thoughts and perceptions and everything that's going on is up top, and the confusing mechanical part is also complicated in the whole midsection of the rocket. I mean, that's where all the rocket engineers operate, right?
Gotcha. Yep.
The actual thrust section is easy. That's our behavior.
Okay.
So our core beliefs are really kind of operating in all of that tangled mess in the middle. That's really hard to know which wire is connected to which wire and how the power generator goes to in action, and even the subsets of the little generator. Like, that's what we're kind of dealing with.
Okay.
With core beliefs and the assumptions that we make. Okay. I would lose people with that metaphor. You believe that?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
I gotcha.
So I was talking to Casey about this today. She was on last month or recently, and she gave a much better metaphor that I will now use for the rest of my career, actually. Like these glasses, right?
Okay.
Got glasses on. If you can imagine sunglasses that you put on your head, then when you're looking out at everything, those glasses dictate how you see those things. It's dark. It's, you ever seen those blue sunglasses? They give a blue tint, or the darkness of the sunglasses, or even eyeglasses. It changes. Like, you're actually a little blurry now to me, right? Because you're too far away. These are for
gotcha.
readers right here. They help me here, but not here. They help me here in reading this, but they don't help me here, right? And so these are our core beliefs.
Okay.
They filter and drive everything that we're perceiving around us. And I thought that's a much better metaphor. Which one do you like better, and which one does it make sense?
They both make sense. It almost seems like they're saying different things. The one is talking about how it's complicated, and that maybe we're all wired differently, and that there's a lot to it. And then the other one is more about how we are viewing the world, and how it can change depending on what view you take or what filter you use.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
That's perfect. And here's why. I find that people simplify this topic that way, and I think you just changed my mind, and that I will use both of the metaphors when I'm dealing with this.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, people.
She just brought the complicated one back, because it is a little bit complicated. I mean, you've got to imagine, as we get into looking at what these core beliefs are and how they work and whatnot. And here's the floater, by the way. I'm going to spend time at the end on really looking at what I think people don't look at quite so much when we get to the part of how do you change these, because that's something. There's two main things I want people to understand. Here's a big takeaway, right? These are very difficult to identify, and they absolutely are changeable.
Okay.
Right? So they're difficult to identify because they are assumptions. Your emotional system has just learned this is just true, when sometimes it's not. But you can actually relearn what you previously thought to be just factually true. Right?
Okay.
And so those are two really important points.
Okay.
But what I learned when I was kind of kicking around with Google and thinking about this show, and I spent a little bit of time on it because it's so involved, with people that blog on it, people that talk about it, they do want to make it simple. But it's kind of really hard to grasp onto. And I've said that a few times because the natural question is, well, where do these assumptions come from? How do we develop them? Don't we have to know that if we're going to change them?
I would think so.
Yeah. And it's really hard to discern in a complicated way where they really come from. Because a lot of times they come from childhood experiences, really dramatic events in our lives, or big turning points. So yeah.
depending on where they come from, I would think, tell me if I'm wrong, that it would change the way you would address them as well. Because seems to me if it comes from a childhood thing, then something maybe for you was normalized that isn't normal.
Right.
But if it comes from trauma, I mean, when you go through trauma, if something changes you or if, don't you? Maybe not.
I don't think you do. That's precisely an important point. I don't think you know that these things create, or when they create, assumptions. I mean, think about the word assumption. Mm-hmm. It's not thought about.
Right.
It's not rationalized.
Right.
This is not a cognitive process.
It's like a reflex.
It's like a reflex.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a reflex that's driving how you see things, it's obviously, here's another takeaway, really important to identify these things. So they're difficult, they're important, and they can be changed. But even when you go through something traumatic, I think you don't realize that it taught you something about life that you just now assume. It just is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So do you need to know where they come from and how they're created? Maybe, maybe not. The pause that I have here, Cortney, is that when you're going through, okay, you know how you have an aha moment? Mm-hmm. You've touched on one of these core beliefs.
Okay.
It's a big tip. And I'll have that in therapy, right? It'll be like, oh, and you'll see people just make a connection with something, and they may not even know what they just made a connection with, but something big just shifted.
Okay. Yep. I have an example of that.
All right, awesome.
And my husband will not mind sharing because we share this kind of stuff all over the place. So,
okay.
Quick background. My husband is a recovering sex addict and pornography addict. When that revelation was coming out and he was, that was all unraveling and I was learning about this secret life that he was having, there was one day that we were going at it. He ran up the stairs. I chased him because I'm, not the engulfed one.
Yes, the abandonment people, we do that.
We chased him down. And he turned to me, he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, you just do what's right. And he said, I'm trying to make you happy. And I say, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do what's right. And he thought those two things were the same thing. His assumption was to make me happy was the right thing.
Right.
And you could see the light bulb aha moment in him when I said, that's not the same thing. I just want you to do what's right. Yeah. And it was like, wait a minute. My world just exploded. What do you mean that's not the same thing?
Exactly.
So
that is a perfect example. And I would submit to you that honestly, Mark, in that moment, and thank you for sharing that, and you can get a lot more in the previous episodes that we did on that because we covered that topic. And, did Mark know where that come from? Does Mark understand where that was really framed?
He does now.
He does now.
Yeah.
I bet that.
After therapy.
Exactly. I mean, which to a point with this, this operates a lot easier in a therapy environment. Can I say that?
Sure.
Because this does take some work and a lot of guilt-free looking at in a non-judgmental environment what these things are.
Yeah, I would think you would need a safe environment to unpack a lot of this.
You kind of do. This is work best done with a therapist. I hadn't thought about that before, but it came to me as you were saying that because, I know that he's done a lot of work. Y'all have done a lot of work and really kind of put the time in. And because that's the only way you can really reframe these things. Cognitive behavioral term, right? Reframe,
yeah.
Now, it can happen in a moment like that.
Yeah.
But then
he needs to follow up and figure out all that.
And that's where
all
the work
the
begins.
Rocket parts.
Exactly. I love it, right?
Rewire it.
Yes. Because here's the thing. You ever found something to just be so, and when you find out, like you find something out like that it isn't so anymore, don't you want to go back to well, no, wait a minute. It was so much easier when it was just that way.
Right.
Now I've got to think differently. Like, everything I've been looking at is not...
And that's not something that can happen overnight.
No,
I mean, that
right.
takes practice and time. And
it is a very purposeful thing to rewire something like that has been ingrained. Now, again, it can be done. Mm-hmm. It can be done. But yeah, perfect example. That is just awesome. So I did find out this handout that was, I thought, kind of cool. You don't even have it, Courtney, because it's actually... this was like a handout for therapists. I thought it was interesting. I thought it might help me, to do a better job of explaining it. Core beliefs are a person's most central ideas about themselves, others, and the world. These beliefs act as a lens through which every situation and life experience is seen. Because of this, people with different core beliefs might be in the same situation, but think, feel, and behave very differently. Right? Mm-hmm. That's because we have different beliefs. Though we're in the same room, we have the same person saying something to both of us, but we see it completely differently, right? And even if core belief is inaccurate, it still shapes how we see the world. Because it's just what we perceive, and that's based on what we've experienced. It's based on what we've been told. Aren't there some people out there that have told some people some pretty crazy things?
I think so.
I've had some pretty crazy things told to me or taught to me that I've had to really relearn, and it's hard. What else do I want to do this for? Common harmful core beliefs. They have just examples. And okay, that was a point I wanted to make as well. Usually these beliefs... You know that you're on the right track when it's a simple statement. Okay, that's another takeaway. You know that you've landed on some sort of assumption or some sort of, we call them core beliefs. I just didn't think that would be as good of a title, challenge your core beliefs. It's like, what?
People may not click on that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even, like you said, I don't even know what is that. So you challenge these assumptions, and you can identify them by really simple statements. They're not complicated.
Can you give an example?
Many.
Okay.
Right? But I want to drive that home a little bit, because when you start, let's say if you say a sentence with an, I was going to try to sound, I'm failing right now, Courtney. What is a complicated sentence? It has like conjunctions in it and precipitating things. What are some of the fancy English words?
Precipitating? No, that's what it's doing outside right now.
Precipitation is outside. What are the fancy English words? Conjunctions and
clauses and
run-on sentences.
Right. Dangling participles.
That's what I'm looking for. Do you know what a dangling participle is?
I do. And I still use them sometimes.
Yes. Right? It's just a simple see, spot, run kind of sentence. That's it.
Okay.
They're very, very simple thoughts. And you don't even think about them very often. It's just, again, assumed. I am weak. I am a loser. I am trapped. I am bad. I am good. I am beautiful. I'm smart. I am dumb. Right?
So it's important, I just picked this up, that assumptions, they can be positive or negative or neutral.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the positive ones, we're not really that worried about, It's what you've built your understanding of yourself on. Now, we can be naive, and we can be narcissistic, right? So nothing operates in a vacuum. It's not black and white here. You can believe I am a great writer. And maybe you're not. So you need a great editor. See how I did that?
I see.
Sorry.
I do not accept your assumption of me.
And there you go, right? I can believe that you're a great editor, but honestly, if you don't, then you have a block there. And part of what we're trying to do in therapy and identifying these things and working to change them is to deal with those blocks, because when we're talking about marriage, when we're talking about your financial management, when we're talking about your spiritual life with your Creator, oh yeah, this affects so many big areas of our life, and they're just the assumptions that ride through the day and you don't even know it. And I don't like that. I want to know what's wiring me, what's driving me. And for the ones that aren't even accurate about me, like I am a good writer. I could do this, you know. You need to reframe those things, and that frees you. I mean, it's a beautiful freeing process when you really get those aha moments and you learn the truth like Mark did.
Yeah.
Or at least a better model of the truth.
Right. And it positively impacts your relationships when you do. Once you get past the initial shock.
It's shocking.
And dismay, really.
Ooh. Go further with dismay.
Well, when you hold something as truth and you find out it's not, I think there's probably a grieving process.
I didn't even think about that part, but you're right. This is what has made me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
doesn't everyone believe this? Like, if there's a loss.
Right. There is a huge loss there. And I hadn't thought about this to have a part of our show, so I'm glad you did that. Is that what makes us stuck in them? Because we hold on so tight.
We're bargaining.
To the things that we believe.
Right.
Because I can't be wrong about something I've held on to my whole life.
Especially if you thought it was working for you all that time.
Right.
Even if it wasn't, your assumption is that it was.
Yeah, and here's another really important part of that. So sometimes you needed these beliefs to survive.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of alcoholic dysfunctional families, for instance. I mean, you needed to know I am not safe. Because guess what? In a lot of ways, emotionally, sometimes straight up physically, you're not safe. And that actually kept me safe. You know, police officers will talk about this sometimes. They're like, yeah, I scan the room. I know I'm on a date with you, but I know every movement before it happens in this room. And that keeps me alive. So don't mess with my core belief that I'm not safe.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
It's a powerful thing, but they become unnecessary because we're on a date. Neil's here. He's got us secure. He's watching, and we can just focus on each other, right? So the point here is that things that used to be very functional for us, now later on in life are no longer functional. In fact, they're quite dysfunctional. And you hang on to it, and when you have to change it, there's a loss. Yeah, it's a really excellent point. See, you said you didn't get this topic. What are you talking about? You're all over it. Okay, so, I wanted to do this too on this thing. I thought it was cool. They said some facts about core beliefs. People are not born with core beliefs. They are learned. I think I talked about that. Core beliefs usually develop in childhood or during stressful, traumatic periods in adulthood. I think I talked about that. Information that contradicts core beliefs is often ignored. We sort of just talked about that.
Yeah.
If something contradicts I am ugly and somebody gives me a compliment, it's going to be ignored. It just can't get in here. You're a great dad. Well, if you I'm not good enough to be a dad. I didn't even want to have kids. I'm not a good dad. And I say, man, I wish I could be like you with your kids. It's so awesome. It's ignored. Shut down.
Yeah.
It's like acid is poured on that to get rid of it because it doesn't fit, right, with what I know already. So they do get ignored. Negative core beliefs are not necessarily true, even if they feel true. Okay, we talked about that. Core beliefs tend to be rigid and long-standing, and they say, however, they can be changed. I did a decent job with describing core beliefs.
I think so.
That handout wasn't totally necessary because I got that and I was like, okay, that might be really helpful. Because again, I get confused by this a little bit when I'm really trying to work with somebody on it. This can be confusing. Challenging them. Okay. this is where I said before, the articles and the way people talk about this is really pretty simple. Recognize what your beliefs are, identify and recognize them. Okay. Assert new beliefs in place of those beliefs. Okay. And take some actions based on those new beliefs. That's what people kind of write about and talk about. And I like simple. I really kind of feel like I'm pretty good at describing bipolar to people that don't know anything about it, or, identifying what anxiety is to somebody with an itchy sweater all day long, and come up with great metaphors and stuff. This is not that simple. Mm-hmm. It's just not. And this is why, again, a therapy process oftentimes is really important, or an involved, objective person that you trust.
Yeah.
How's that for a phrase?
Yeah. I would think that even that first step to me sounds complicated and daunting, because I would think you'd have to pull back layers. Like, you can't just dive right in and explode a core belief or assumption and move on to step 2. I feel like if you did that itself might be traumatic.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure there are layers to peel, or steps to take, or phases to go through, or time, or something that...
Kind of after you identify those simple sentences.
Okay.
That's where you get into the weeds a little bit with it. And I think that's where I'm trying to say, like, you kind of have to do that too, because if you don't do that, you'll revert back. You'll go back to those beliefs again and reconstitute that harmful thing that you've believed. And that's where the work comes in. Mm-hmm. So the identification, let's do a little bit with that to simplify that. It is simple sentences, but how do you identify them? It's kind of looking at things in reverse.
Okay.
Thus, the title here. Okay. Challenge the assumptions we live by. Okay. When something's going on and it's really got a lot of energy to it, just stop for a second and just begin asking yourself questions. Some questions that might come like, I love the therapy question we ask. What does this mean to you? Right? Or what do I really believe here? What's the problem really? What builds on that? So you kind of see somebody give you a compliment. You don't really feel the compliment. What am I experiencing with this compliment? Why do I have this experience of rejecting that compliment? And you see how you kind of go backwards a little bit? Mm-hmm. And then you get it, well, do I really believe this compliment? Okay, well, why don't I believe this compliment? Oh, because I know the truth is I'm a terrible therapist. I didn't even know I thought that, but when you go in reverse like that,
gotcha.
You can get kind of down into it.
Okay.
Your facial expressions were interesting. What were you thinking?
Yes. Well, I mean, you're using the example of you as a therapist, but when I was in high school, my AP English teacher told me I was not a good writer.
Oh my gosh.
And it crushed me.
Yeah.
And I believed her. And I went into the sciences and became a physical therapist. I was unhappy for 2 decades until I finally realized, no, I want to write. I can edit, and here we are.
Are you serious?
And when you give me compliments, when anyone gives me a compliment about writing or editing, I have trouble accepting it. There you go.
Gosh.
Lay it bare.
Can we do a high five? Here. No, wow, thank you for that.
Yep.
And that does that says a lot. Mm-hmm. That says a lot, and it's another perfect example of, what really happens and how powerful that can be. So thank you for sharing that in a sense of 2 decades mm-hmm. in a different industry that mm-hmm. wasn't really satisfying or passionate for you, mm-hmm. that it led to that. I guess an example come. All right, I'll give you an example.
Neil, you're next.
You're next, buddy. Oh, he vehemently shakes his head. He's like, no, you all have fun over there. I'm back here. So I remember this very clearly. I'm glad you did that because it brought this back to me. Just a stupid night out in college. And so I'll try to top you because this still resides on me. Okay. So I remember one night hanging out in a club, just doing the college thing, and I went out to the dance floor and I do the dance thing, and I don't know, I think I hit on a girl that didn't work out, and it just made me feel even worse. And so I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Let me go get my beer, And I come back, and my buddy Matt looks at me. He's like, "Don't ever do that again." And it was crushing.
The dancing?
Yes.
Oh.
So I do not really like dancing because I can really recall that feeling. Mm-hmm. And it's still with me today. Mm-hmm. I don't, I guess I'll do it, but it's not, I don't enjoy it, So there's lots of these little insecurities and lots of these little things that we have that play out. Okay. So, okay, we've dove in a little bit to that. Let me give an area where I think is pretty important that doesn't really get talked about much at all. And that is, I have this big thing with an overview of mental health, right? Mm-hmm. I call it the Tale of Two Tapes.
Okay.
Have you heard this yet?
No.
Okay. So a Tale of Two Tapes is a really big overview of mental health. It's a biological component on one side. So your genetics, the dopamine, serotonin, your limbic system, all the adrenal glands, all the, sleep, exercise, all of this stuff biologically drives how you feel. But then on the other side, you have social and emotional realities, right? So life experiences, life's relationships, the daily stress, the grind, that also drives how we feel. So you have this complicated interplay between the biology and the social and emotional that's intermingling to create what it is that you experience.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that's an overview of mental health, the Tale of Two Tapes. Well, if you think about this side of it, okay, the audience can't see that, can they? But you can on YouTube because we're getting our videos out on YouTube. How's that for a plug, Neil? Did I do all right with that? He's just like, yeah, all right, cool. What about the biological realities here, right? How might that drive? Nothing traumatic, nothing from your childhood. No mom's messed you up,
or dad.
Or daddy issues. Simply that your body is geared from about whatever age the onset of depression took hold. Now, we know what depression is, right? Mm-hmm. It is lack of energy, lack of motivation, sex drive goes down, appetite goes down, you get a foggy brain, you feel helpless and hopeless, stuck in a rut. It's terribly sad. You get tearful and you don't know why. Like, it is hardcore when you really get into a depressed state. Well, what are some core beliefs that might come out of this depressed state? Can you see that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The world is dark.
I'll never feel better.
I am stuck where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like those are, you haven't done anything wrong. You feel it. Mm-hmm. It's very real to you. You might even come out of it when you're out of a depression episode and totally have a totally different perspective. But all the other times, it always comes back. So it's like crushing even the good things that you might see and experience and feel. Let me tell you, chronic depression over the course of a life cycle can be debilitating. Matter of fact, some people are on disability for it because it is debilitating.
Right.
How do you battle that core belief? There's a question.
For me?
Sure. I'm being unfair.
Yeah, a little unfair. The non-clinician.
But you can think about it, though, right?
So, yeah, you're talking the biological side.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of maybe certain treatments, medications,
Yes.
things like that.
Medications and a lot of the things that we're going to talk about here in a segment coming up where, what do you do to battle these assumptions? What do you do to really get your perceptions in a different place? You can feel so helpless with this, feeling like, I hate this phrase. Well, I can't change the way I feel. And I hear that, because you feel like you can't.
Right.
This is desperate times. What am I supposed to do? This is just reality here. You don't even know to look at core assumptions. It's just the way it is. That's another one I hate. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Your face just went in a contortion. Right? But these things drive this. Okay, depression. How about anxiety? We know what anxiety is, right? There's different types, but I'm obsessed with my thoughts, or I'm compulsed to take these actions. OCD. I worry. I make mountains out of molehills. I can't relax. Generalized anxiety, right? Simple phobias. Terrified to get in the car and drive. I'm a bad driver. Isn't that a core belief? Okay, well, because I'm terrified when I get in the car. You see, the body is driving the way that you feel. And so I don't think that gets identified enough is my main point here, right? The way that our bodies are driving mental health sometimes is also what we're really up against. And yeah, medications can help, but therapy can help. And again, we'll get into some things to kind of manage that. Bottom line here is, even if it's biological or social and emotional, whichever side it comes from, do you want to continue believing things that aren't true?
Right.
Right? And I hope and think the answer is going to be no. So we need to challenge them. So what behaviors come out of this? This is a good one to just check out the website and see the show notes that we had come up, because there were some cool things that I put on there for it. What behaviors come in? This was an interesting article that pointed out some of the outcroppings, some of the assumptions also are in here in the way that they kind of put it. But assuming that someone will definitely turn you down before they even asking them out, right? That's something that people struggle with. Assuming that a client won't want to work with you even if you send them an offer, any kind of client in whatever industry. Assuming that nobody will like the article that you wrote, Cortney.
Ouch.
On the page, even though, so you just wrote it anyway, right? That's an assumption that you make. Assuming that people are focused only on that one imperfection that you have with your body. Again, interesting, right? The body dysmorphic disorder is another type of anxiety. No social learning there. No,
right.
It's you have anxiety and your limbic system is driving a fear about the way your nose looks. Right? Michael Jackson. I can't say that he was dealing with this from afar, but it sure seems like it. How many surgeries did he do, and complexion changes and all of that? He very well may have had body dysmorphic type anxiety. And we don't think about that. So anyway, assuming that a group of people don't like you and that they make fun of you. Okay, fortune telling is another form of this. I'm applying to colleges. I'm having the thought that you'll not get in. But why apply? My grades aren't good enough. I'm not a good enough school student. Here's that for a core thought. I suck at school. Right? Assuming I'll never get the job if I lose this one. I'm not a great employee. Here's a point about that too. When you come down to these statements, I'm not a good employee. I'm not a good student. I'm not a good writer. Right? I'm not a good dancer. Do we really, like, if we were talking to our friend, a lot of times I don't think that we would say it that clearly.
No, absolutely not.
Not because we're hiding it. Not because we're in denial. Well, we might be in a little bit of denial because the true aspect of denial is because we don't see it.
Right.
I'm just not going to dance. Why? I don't care. I just don't. I'm not in the mood.
I just became a physical therapist instead. Good grief. I think I won that.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
Cost a whole lot more.
Yeah, I bet it did. I bet it did. I did not know you were a PT. That's awesome. Okay. So you have a geeky science brain too, though.
I do.
Did you like it at all?
I like science. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to diagnosing a patient.
Okay. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you see though the behavior that comes out of this? And generally, honestly, the ones that we care about are I'm not going to fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. Those are the behaviors. Those are the outcomes.
So do most of these assumptions come from others?
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that's said and sticks.
Or done to us.
Or done and sticks.
Or thirdly, chronically something that we're experiencing because of a condition.
Yes. Okay, yes.
Now, I like to add that one.
Yeah.
Because people do not think of it in that vein. I think in my field, people don't think of it oftentimes in that vein too. But yeah, they're pivotal moments.
Well, I need to know how to unlearn this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Is that a prompt? Like, hey, get to the last segment.
No.
Because that's where we want to spend a bulk
No, I'm
of our
thinking
time.
of my loved ones.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking about one that coming from a divorced family is something that I share pretty often in other shows or other times. I've described the whole scenario that when I found out that my parents were separating. It was a terrible moment. Here's a tip. Look at those big moments and see just how many core beliefs can come out of them. Because bigger ones, I'm telling you, a lot of them come from there. Mm-hmm. Several, probably. I'm afraid people are going to leave me. I'm afraid people aren't going to like me. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid that, I'm stupid and do something wrong and I can't make friends. I mean, these are some of the things I think I really had to deal with, through high school.
I still do.
College. Yeah.
I still do.
Right? And they absolutely. And when you deal with them, you revert back.
Yeah.
It's that reverting back thing because don't you tend to trust the first thing that you know is true? Yep,
you do. Especially if it's coming from a type of authority figure, like a parent, a teacher, a friend, a employer, I don't know.
Yeah.
That holds more water, maybe. I don't know.
And so do compliments.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've fallen onto the negative, but we could probably switch that and begin thinking, wow, when somebody really told me something, mm-hmm. it was like a big deal. Mm-hmm. I landed in an honors biology class. Melissa Puz, if you're listening out there, I use your name all the time simply because she was a smart person. She was in the smart kid. Somebody put me in honors biology with the smart people.
Oh, see, I think I heard an assumption.
Right? Well, but what I'm saying is it reframed. Actually, that's when my academic career really started taking off. I then learned, because I really applied myself in that biology class, Courtney, I wanted to get an A. I mean, I read a paragraph and thought about it, read another paragraph, thought about it. Like, I applied myself, and I got an A. Mm-hmm. And that reframed, I didn't know it till way later on in life, but that reframed something that I had previously began to think about myself. Mm-hmm. You know why I really struggled? When I was in 3rd, 4th grade or whatnot, I had major hearing problems. Mm-hmm. And I think that really stunted a lot of my development with school. And so I just began to believe, okay, well, school's not really my thing. I'm a C student. I'll get along, whatever. Until I hit honors biology. So you see, things do shift.
Yeah.
And when you want to, and they shift naturally, but when you want to get purposeful about it, boom, you can begin to do it. Yeah, so you're right. Like, so how do we change them? Let's go to that. This is the last segment, and we'll spend the most amount of time on. Okay, how do you change these things? Courtney, do you have any idea off the cuff, thinking about it as we have for a little while?
I think it takes, like you said, intention, surrounding yourself with safe people that you trust, speaking different truth into you. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that really, that is totally on point. Totally on point. And I value friendships, people that are willing to really tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. Yes. When they tell you something that you're screwing up,
Yeah.
that you've got a good friend. And when that friend tells you something like, Chris, you really dance fine, they can get through because they're objective and they'll tell you the truth and you trust it. That third party input is huge. And that's probably why it came number one on my list. Allow for and ask for positive feedback. Mm-hmm. Think about that, though. Allow for it.
Yeah, but to ask for it?
And to ask for it.
Ooh, that's hard.
Right?
Like I imagine as the fledgling writer, I didn't write again for a couple decades. And I can't imagine asking to write something and ask someone for another opinion.
Wow. Okay. Can you, 7 years into that process, write a poem and ask someone that you really trust, maybe Mark, maybe your mom, and ask them if this is complete crap? Put it that way.
Phrase it that way.
Phrase it that way.
Yes, I can. Yes, I think people can phrase it that way because
matches their core belief.
Right. It matches their core belief. And so the expectation is that.
But you're still doing something really, really important.
Yeah.
You're asking. Mm-hmm. You're not assuming. Mm-hmm. How many poems have been written and never read? Mm. Right? So there is a very important, that's what I'm saying, allow for feedback, but ask for it. And that takes a lot of courage, like you said. Mm-hmm. And it is hard to do.
And emotional maturity.
And resiliency.
And resiliency.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine my teenagers asking. Maybe too young. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Well, no, they'll ask their friends.
That's true.
Yeah, they
parents
totally,
don't. Yeah, they don't want their parents' opinion. It doesn't hold water anymore.
No, yes, because I remember doing that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a lot of
That's
adjustment.
true.
I had tough years in high school, and I had a couple of really good friends, and we had some really deep, good conversations. As a matter of fact, today somebody told me, in my therapy realm, we were doing a session, and he's like, yeah, I found a great friend, and we've got this big hill, and we climb up this hill, and we sit there, and we just talk and talk. He's like, man, he's really turned into a good friend. And I was like,
That's
cheering
great.
him on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of moments that you can get, really good feedback, and then allow it in. Mm-hmm. You have to allow it. Mm-hmm. Somebody tells you you're a good dancer, and it goes against your belief. Here's a key, can you consider another perspective?
We get second opinions for our health, right?
Yeah.
For our health, our physical diagnoses.
Yeah.
Get second opinion for our emotional ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's part of the simple part that people talk about this. Identify your assumptions, develop new assumptions, and then develop actions from those assumptions. Some of these things that I'm going to talk about here and how do you challenge your assumptions are those actions. But, it starts from that, just that simplicity of it. So pretty cool. Focus on little successes is next on the list that I just brainstormed. You ever hear of I have a feel-good file, right? Do you have any place where successful people talk about the jar of success or the jar of awesomeness? I think Craig talks about that. Which, by the way, Craig's coming back next week, y'all.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we get Craig for a week next week. It's his month. I forgot to announce that in the front end. Excited about that. I think he's excited about it, too.
Good.
It's funny. We did a show together, and he was like, oh, this is so cool. And I'm like, I know. Why did you leave? No, I didn't say that. But the jar of awesomeness and my feel-good file. I will have a rough day, and I'll pull out this file, and it's just some of the little moments. It might be a picture that a client drew for me, and I remember them and their, our work together. There was literally a letter somebody wrote. Get this. Somebody wrote a letter when I was still in grad school on a mobile crisis team. And they were just raving about the conversation we had on this hotline. And explaining that she felt at the bottom, end of her rope, and that she credited, saving her life that night. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can almost get to tears with that.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I have that still with me. Mm-hmm. But Human Resources never gave it to me, Courtney.
Oh.
They never gave that to me. Can you believe that? Yeah. So I was actually doing a thing, and I was like, let me see my whole chart with you guys. And I went through it because you're allowed to as an employee. I was having a problem. And I found it. So this feel-good file can remind you of moments, of things that you did well, of things that you can accomplish, of just when you're down, you can refute, I suck. No, I don't. Look, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Wildly successful people that you would think don't need that.
Utilize that, huh?
A lot. A lot.
That's interesting. I have a couple of similar things, not jars or files, but similar things, but I don't know that I utilize it. I just tuck it away. And so I think it's important that people pull it out. Yeah. Pull
them out. I mean, I've got badges and stuff like that remind me of the jobs that I had, and I've got a couple pictures of myself there. And, but there's some academic things that I got, and just simple little things. And some might say, "Oh, that's arrogant. You just have all your little stuff to think great about yourself." Yeah. No, you think horrible about yourself, so you pull these things out to feel more accurately better. That's the point. So I think that's a big action, and that's also, isn't that purposeful?
Yes, very.
You'll notice with these things that they're purposeful. Good old goal setting, I thought of.
It's important.
They will say, when you set goals, do you set goals that you can easily attain? No. You set goals that challenge yourself, and we could do a whole show on goal setting, but put something out there. Put something in front of you and go get it. Because you know what happens when you go get it? You relearn what you thought you couldn't do. Mm-hmm. Right? Simple goals, any kind of goals. Physical goals, Can I run 5K race today? I just got nervous with that example.
I'm going to hold you to that.
You know what? I could. But I probably need to set a goal for a mile first. Right?
Right.
So set goals and push and be courageous in that process. And again, that's purposeful. Mm-hmm. Remember the change self strategy? I think we talked about it on the show. Mm-hmm. Choose one thing that you like about yourself. Mm-hmm. Choose one thing that you don't like about yourself. Work on changing that. Now you've got 2 that you like. 1 that you don't. Choose another one. Work on that. 3 becomes 6. 6 becomes 12, and you begin to build self-esteem that way. I use that therapy activity to build self-esteem, but doesn't it change some of the assumptions that you have?
I guess so.
Along the way? Some of the things that you don't like about yourself probably are based on faulty beliefs, right? So that's a direct way to influence what you've assumed. Objective, honest assessment of self. That sounds like fun, doesn't it?
No.
My head just went into the microphone. Oh. Yeah. In the AA program, they do something called taking a personal inventory. Mm-hmm. And it's like step 4 or I think it's step 4. And it's a huge undertaking that is simple. You just list the things that are good about you, things that aren't good about you. You just spend a little bit of time, like what's present, what's here. Actually, this probably isn't even really one that should be on my list of, taking actions to change the assumptions. This probably really is more in the identify part.
Okay.
And inventory. What is about me? What do we think? What do we have? Let's just take an inventory. That could take a lot of courage, though.
Yeah.
Courage is a common theme, and purposeful actions are a common theme. Okay. Gratitude list. You ever hear of that?
Yes, I've done that.
Right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't that directly impact what you begin to believe?
Oh, absolutely.
About your life?
It changes your whole mindset. Instead of what you don't have, it focuses you on what you do have and what you can do. And
right. Talk about that changed mindset real quick.
Well, so We've been working with this with one of our children who is always looking to what else they want instead of being content with what they have.
There's a word.
Content.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what we encourage is this gratitude list. What are you thankful for that you have?
Yeah.
Or that you can do or that you're good at? And it changes the mindset it's from negative to positive.
And it stumbles upon reframing cognitive behavioral therapy word.
There are your buzzwords.
Right? Reframing some of the things that you've thought you didn't even realize you have.
Right.
Yeah. It's a powerful tool. Apologize when necessary when it does no harm to the other person. Why would that be on the list? Well, when you're courageous enough to recognize your behavior and you levy an apology for something that you've done or been doing, doesn't that change the way that you're going to behave? And, as you just described, the way that you think.
Right.
Because you can then begin also to go backwards like we were talking about before and recognize some of these basic core beliefs that you're operating from. Right? Refute negative messages that others have given you unless they are true, and usually they are not.
Usually they are not. I like that little last part.
Right? Because people don't know you, and they don't know what you can become. They may give you a criticism, and that may change next year. You don't have to stay stuck with Matt's belief that I better never do that again. Yeah, right? And this is a simple one. I mean, that's basically all of what we're trying to do when we're, changing and working with these glasses that we see everything to. We're trying to refute those glasses. Just take a peek over the rim. It looks different. Never knew that. Just peek. Take a look. It takes courage.
Yeah.
And it's also purposeful. Okay. This is a hard one here. Confront those that are mean to us in the present, right? And we were just talking about that before the mics come on, right?
We were.
This is a hard thing to really do. Confront somebody that tells you you're bad at something. Wait a minute. No, I don't know that I'm bad at something. Don't just stomp on me. Don't, We did a whole show on how to stop a bully and dealing with conflict. Super, uber fast. We did a whole show on this, but tell the person to stop doing what they're doing, back off, give them space, and then get objective third-party help to intervene. That's a little tidbit that'll deal with any conflict you have in a boardroom, on a playground, in an office, at home, with your wife, with your husband, with your kids, with your neighbors, anywhere, right? But that's a hard thing to step up in to do. But when you do it, what are you going to find? You're going to block the bad messaging that somebody might be giving you. I'm thinking of domestic violence, right? I'm thinking of living with an alcoholic. They give a lot of messages.
Right.
I'm trying to slow my speech down and dramatically demonstrate. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is a hard one.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's a hard one.
You get so many bombardment from messages that way, and you can learn, and you probably need a lot of support and help from loved ones and people that are in your corner that care about you. But you can step up into that situation and tell the person to stop doing what they're doing, right? And then you back off and you get objective help. But there's a whole involved process with that. That's definitely purposeful, right?
Right.
Definitely takes a lot of courage. Use intellect to confront the negative core belief, which is likely a part of an emotional brain. Hard to do, but not impossible. We're running down on time. I probably should have done even the whole show on this part.
Well, we can do a whole show in the spring when I come back on that one.
Would you like to?
Yeah, because I can talk to that one.
What do you mean? Well,
between how thoughts affect your emotions, which affect your behaviors, just like emotions affect your thoughts, then affect your behavior. Yeah. I can talk about that for hours. So
we're going to have you back.
Just highlight that one.
It's really important to understand that. We actually did a show, Trust Your Gut or Use Your Head. I love that title. That's my favorite title of all of our titles.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right? Because your emotional brain, oftentimes with your amygdala, people, we've talked about the fear centers in your brain, drives your behavior. Mm-hmm. And there's so many neuron connections from your amygdala, from your limbic system, to your frontal cortex, and like trillions or thousands, I forget the numbers, and only like hundreds or maybe thousands of them going from your frontal cortex to your limbic system. Mm-hmm. It's like a super fast highway from your emotional brain to your intellect, and like a tank and tricycle
right.
from your frontal cortex, your thought process, to your emotion center.
Right.
Right. But you can switch that.
Yep.
We control our thoughts, and we can actually use our cognition to deflate some of these thoughts. And that's the goal. That's definitely purposeful. Mm-hmm. That definitely takes courage as well. Have you heard that theme?
I think there's a theme here.
Yeah. Okay. Radical acceptance.
Acceptance of what?
What is, right? There's a program called dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. Her facial expressions are awesome, y'all. You got to see this on YouTube. Dialectical behavioral therapy is a modality that kind of works a lot with mindfulness, and they talk a lot about wise mind and kind of controlling some of these things that go on. A lot of times it's used for borderline personality patients, but we all can benefit from it. It's actually a lot of Far Eastern mentality or medicines and thought and meditation and this type of a thing. Well, one of those things in there is radical acceptance. You radically accept kind of what's going on now, even if it's something that confronts the core belief that I have. You're going to leave me. But you are being so nice to me. You are sticking through this show. You are going and being my friend. You are hearing me. You're not running away. Sometimes we need to practice this concept of radical acceptance that what I anticipate might happen, that you're going to leave me,
is not happening.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's a difficult thing to do. Mm-hmm. To believe something that I know to be true. Mm-hmm. It's not happening. Reframe is on my list, which is all about cognitive therapy. We look at taking the thought, reframing it, fashioning it into another one, and speaking that out. You ever hear speaking the truth?
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Speaking the truth into existence. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I will be a New York Times best-selling author.
Go you.
If I believe it.
You dancing fool.
It can happen. It can't happen if you don't believe it.
Right. That's true.
Leave yourself positive messages. Literally, that sounds corny, but dude, if you're trying to work on one of these, put a Post-it note on the mirror. You'll see it every morning and remind yourself. Right? Mm-hmm. Meditate. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this.
Okay.
In honor of Craig, who's coming back next week.
Hi, Craig.
I was sitting in his house one day, and he had this background meditative stuff going on. He's a super coach, guys. He does the Unbeatable Mind coaching stuff. And I was sitting there, and we're getting ready to record, and it's this music softly playing, ocean sounds, and the messages come up with beautiful pictures of beautiful people and boats and riches, and it's messages like, you are powerful. You are beautiful. You are all-knowing. You are important. You are wealthy beyond your knowledge. You are knowledgeable. And it's just soaking over you as you're just watching the waves and seeing the things. I actually felt like really relaxed.
I was going to say, did you leave wealthy?
Yeah.
No, but happy. Peaceful.
Yes.
Content.
Yes. Right? Like all of these things. It did say wealthy because you got to believe it before you become it. And we had a great show that night because I was relaxed. All right, we need to wrap up and get out of here, I think, ma'am. Thanks for hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
I'm going to give you closing thoughts and how they find you again or anything that you want to say.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you'll invite me back in the spring.
You have got to come back in the spring.
I will.
All right, y'all have a great week. We'll see you next week.